Today, we begin our 3-round 2026 NFL mock draft with trades. And just like the NFL draft, this is split up into 2 days. Day 1, round 1. Day 2, rounds 2 and 3. Let's get right into this. Again, if you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. If you see an asterisk, that's a player who's bound to fall. A player with a plus, that is a pre-grade or pre-injury grade. So those are also players who are destined to fall. Of course, the only one in concern, John Mateer. Let's get into this. If you guys want to see over 290 players all broken down, thanks to all 22 grades exclusively, feel free to go over, join the Patreon, $5 a month. Great community over there. Let's get into this. Hey, y'all, I have partnered up once again with DraftKings Sportsbooks to bring y'all an amazing offer. New customers bet $5 and get paid $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Also, get 3 months of NBA League Pass no matter what. Make sure to use code HMS when signing up. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has you covered. Bet live on star props and in-progress games right as they happen. If sports betting is not yet legal in the state you live in, do not worry. DraftKings still has you covered with their daily fantasy option. I live in the state of Texas, so this will be what I use. Make sure to use the code HMS when signing up, and a huge thank you to DraftKings once again for sponsoring this episode. Number 1, we have the New York Jets, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The Jets are going to be going quarterback here. Like, if just unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do. The offensive line, not bad. The weaponry, easily improvable, but still heavily invested in with a first-round receiver, a second-round tight end. There is definitely pieces there, and we're going to continue adding to it through this mock draft. I'd like the idea of potentially trying to trade down, but I think that the Cuban Missile is going to be the most important aspect of this team. Some people think Ty Simpson should be the number 1 pick. I want to see a couple more weeks of consistency from Ty Simpson. Again, 7 starts. He's done a fantastic job. But again, at the same time, 7 starts, you want to see a little bit more of a sample size. Dante Moore, he's had a little bit more sample size, but the one who has shown it through multiple programs and multiple years of starting is Fernando Mendoza. And again, after having some stumbles in the middle of the year, he's ended up coming back and ending up showing big time that he is probably the number 1 pick. At number 2 for the Miami Dolphins, I think this is a quarterback, but with the way these teams are stacked up, I do think trying to find a good trade partner is super duper crucial. And I love the idea of testing this theory out. And I was looking based on our 2-round mock we did earlier in the week without trades, how the board would end up panning out. And knowing how I would address number 3 overall with the Saints, and seeing how that would end up trickling down through the Titans and then ultimately the Ravens and, of course, the Browns, I feel very comfortable with the idea of the Dolphins moving down here. And the question is who would move up, right? It's an expensive trade, but the Dolphins are in a pretty dire situation and they only have 7 picks. I think this is going to be very important to be able to maximize capital, and this team's probably going to have a new front of the organization. I think this is going to be a great opportunity to try to optimize the ability to go after an absolute superstar. Ruben Bain Jr. is technically edge 2 for me, but he's going to end up being edge 1. He's been doing such a damn good job. I love Malachi Lawrence. That's just a thing for me. I'm 100% honest with my grading. I understand that I blend my board with realism to make these mock drafts, but I understand Malachi Lawrence is not yet viewed in that realm. 35-inch arms, 263, like top 10 in the entire country for true pass rush win rate for Lawrence, but definitely we'll need to see that versus more top-end teams. Ruben Bain's been consistent. He was my edge 1 coming to the year, and it's perfectly fine to have him be the prize up here at the top. Now, who in this group is going to be at most risk of getting a player that doesn't really impact them enough? I think it's the Baltimore Ravens. Eric DeCosta pretty much sits there and picks and ends up getting exactly what he wants every time. But this is a rare opportunity for the Ravens to be at the top of the draft that they usually aren't. And spoiler alert, they're probably not going to be. Lamar's coming back. But I'm going to end up making this deal. So Eric DeCosta is going to be trading with the Miami Dolphins. It will end up entailing a future 2, and I think it would end up probably taking a this year 2 as well. Eric DeCosta is going to work some magic. I think we can end up like getting something back like 74 and offer 105, so a partial move up there. But continue arming the Dolphins with both current and future capital. Might end up tossing in a 2028 pick as well. But the Baltimore Ravens, you need to capitalize on being high. And pause. That sounds weird. But I think that the most important thing for you guys is to get a legitimate every down, both run defender, but also a high level edge rusher. This team requires it. There's not many other positions that need that level of attention, in my opinion. And Ruben Bain for that price is absolutely amazing. Again, for the Dolphins, you acquire future and current draft capital, and then we're still in a good position to draft the quarterback that I think would be best for us. Now, at number 3 for the New Orleans Saints, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. The question is Peter Woods. Talk about Caleb Downs, but I do agree this defensive back core is not dire. Like, I love Jonas Sanker and how he's been able to, on average, do a great job. Reed got paid. There is certainly going to be a little bit of a discrepancy there in terms of where the value is. So I think the players in concern are Peter Woods and Jordan Tyson. Now, this team is very, very likely trading one of their receivers. And in fact, we should probably toss that into this situation. Now, if PFF has misgiven a certain pick to the Saints or not taking one away, by all means, please call it out. PFF is notorious for not doing that. So I try my best to stay up to date with it. This is going to be a little more difficult, but I do think that the Saints are perfect to trade with a team like the Steelers, whether it would be Rashid Shaheed or Chris Olave. I think the Steelers are going to be big player hunting. And, I think it would end up being like pick 125. Because, again, when you talk about the price of receivers, the question is, which one is it going to be? I'm going to guess it's Rashid Shaheed. That's just like my gut take. So I think for Rashid, it would probably be pick 133. I don't think it matters. It's not that big of a deal. But that's going to be the trade I end up doing for them right there. Getting them a little bit more draft capital as well. But ultimately, I'm looking between Jordan Tyson and Peter Woods. My big question to myself is, what are we going to be able to snipe at 35, 67, and beyond? Are we going to be able to get a top-tier defensive interior? And I think the answer is yes. Are we going to be able to get a top-tier wide receiver? The answer is maybe, because I know I love the wide receiver class a lot, and I know I'm going to take them pretty early and pretty often, especially with receivers translating so well so early. I think we need to end up prioritizing wide receiver here and go after Jordan Tyson, wide receiver at Arizona State. Now, if the medicals start looking scary, then we could talk about it, because he had a hamstring injury. He's had some knee injury in the past. I think there's one other one. I think it might have been an ankle. So definite concerns there. Nothing repeated, which is, to me, a very good sign. But it is something where you need to end up monitoring that situation. Jordan Tyson, Chris Olave, that's a dynamic duo going forward. And again, it sucks to not have Shaheed on the team. At the same time, you can't pay everybody, and it just seems so likely that it also gives us an opportunity with those 2 early 4th-round picks to maybe move up and get someone like a Zachariah Branch to have that vertical element as well. At number 4, the reason I did that is because I didn't want to give myself an easy pick here with the Tennessee Titans. Like, personally, I don't really know where to go with this pick, and that's why I personally put myself in this situation. I could have went Peter Woods and then instantly just went, Jordan Tyson here for the Tennessee Titans. And I just don't think that's necessarily the right way to go about it. So personally, I want to move down. That's where my head's at. I want to move down. And the question is, which team has the draft capital to move up, and which team has a reason to move up? And I do think the Raiders are a team that needs to be at least looking to move up right now for a quarterback, because I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a hint. These next 2 picks after with the Ravens, what the hell? I saw BLT. Getting hungry. But I saw the Dolphins. I saw the Browns. Those 2 teams, I'm looking at Dante Moore, Ty Simpson. Spoiler alert. That's where my head's at right now. But the Raiders are more desperate, in my opinion, than probably both of those teams. So it is a necessity. And for the Titans, it's not a bad opportunity to kind of bulk up on some good draft capital. No idea. PFF, we need to change these teams interested. Who the hell is moving up from 23? Who? Crazy shit. But the Raiders, I think the Titans also should be a little bit more interested in future capital as well. For me, I think that this range could be very similar to what we did for in the 5-2 jump, 4 to 7. It's about 3 spots. Similar range given the fact that you're having to jump quarterback needy teams as well. So I do think that a future second, a this year second ends up making sense. And then again, we're going to do that potential move up right there. And again, you guys can feel free to disagree with that, but I do think we're going to toss in a 2028 like third round pick as well. That just ends up bolstering the future for the Tennessee Titans, ends up kind of reshaping the way that the Vegas Raiders are going to handle things. And again, the Titans are essentially making a small move back to get a ton of draft capital and then also, of course, getting a free second round pick. For the Raiders, you might say there's too many problems, Alex. There's too many problems. I get it. This team needs to hit on a quarterback. They need to. It is so bad. The offensive line needs some work. In my opinion, you have the pieces. You have Charles Grant, that's a third round pick. You also have the kid from Texas Tech last year. I think, is it Rogers? He can end up being a really quality guard if you want to end up going that way. JPJ put his ass to center. Don't know what's up with that. Dude's looking ass at guard. Put Meredith back to guard where he was actually better before moving him to center. And then you can kind of just solve your issues right there. Of course, the right tackle situation, definitely a little bit up there in the air. But again, that's why you have Grant there for the future. You have Genty. You have a really good receiving group. I mean, Best's supposed to take over for Myers, who's going to be leaving. By the way, we can end up trading Myers away if we want to. And, honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea to like send him to a team like the Browns that want to end up continuing to rework their core. I'm actually going to send him to the Giants. And I think it would be probably a fourth round pick. So maybe this is going to be like, we'll send him for pick 147, because he does seem like he wants out. So feel free to do with that as you will. But you guys have Trey Tucker becoming a top tier wide receiver for where he's come from. Besh, who was the replacement for Myers. And then you also have Thornton. Oh, wait a second. You have fucking Brock Bowers. So you have a full weaponry core. You're still developing the offensive line. Defensively, you need help, but you also have free agency for that. And you have Patrick Graham, who, in my opinion, maximizes the value of your defensive players more than it should. I think you need to play the right players more, rookies, and then you guys will be fine. So that's my justification. We're going to go with Vegas Raiders here again. We also added an extra pick while subtracting some. And I'm going to be going after the most day one ready quarterback. And some people will say that's Dante Moore. I actually think that Ty Simpson, in terms of the consistency, like he hasn't had a game outside of week one where it's kind of made me question some things. Ty Simpson's going to be the choice there for the Raiders. I just want someone to distribute it, not maybe be overly sexy. At the same time, if you get flustered with Ty Simpson and want to go Dante Moore, the other one's going to go at pick 5. So I'm happy either way. The Dolphins end up trading back, losing out on Ty Simpson, but getting a ton of draft capital and still getting the quarterback that they want. And again, for some people who want Ty Simpson after Dante Moore, I still would end up making that deal. It's unfortunate, but I know there's Tua Tagovailoa situation with the money. Teams have gotten off much bigger contracts before. It's pretty bad. You guys have to admit there needs to be something that has some sort of redirection in terms of the focus of the franchise, and Dante Moore is going to be the beginning of that. At number 6 for the Cleveland Browns, I basically did everything I can to fuck you guys over. The Steelers fan in me came out. But, I mean, the Browns sitting here at number 6, we'll see if Tyson Campbell is going to be the longer-term option. If Denzel Ward gets moved, we could talk about, potentially doing that. But, I mean, ultimately, I think you just need to go after probably like BPA. That's like Caleb Downs right here, Peter Woods. Like, I personally think that you guys are in a very weird spot. Now, offensive tackle-wise is pretty ass. And so is wide receiver. So, you know what? I take it back. I'm looking at Spencer Fano right here. I went for him in our 2 round. I don't think right tackle is as desperate, but it is a pretty large drop-off after Fano. To me, I love Caleb Tiernan, but I also understand that a lot of people are going to be scared of a 6'8" tackle with 32.5-inch arms. I get that. I understand. But I really think Caleb Tiernan's fantastic. Somebody that you might want to go with in round 2 if you want to do that. But you got to go after offensive line here. And I'm going to go after the one that people think is the best. I don't think either tackle spot is secured for the long haul. So we're going to go after the best option available, Spencer Fano, tackle out of Utah. At number 7 for the Tennessee Titans, I moved down, and I am still very happy with doing so because I'm instantly hitting the Carnell Tate button. We need to get some type of firepower here. Carnell Tate, might say it's a little bit early for him. I agree. I have him at 22 on my board. I really like him. He's very well balanced. He's improved as a blocker. The Titans need to get something balanced. You need to hit. And Carnell Tate's a damn good hit. He's improved year over year. For me, I was not a Carnell Tate believer, but he improved his route running. He improved the finer details of the game so much over one offseason that I'm willing to bet that that streak can continue. And so he has the contested catch ability. He has the deep threat. He has the route running to me. And he also has the blocking. So it's just, you're talking about somebody who's a complete receiver. This is what this team needs. I'm going to lock it in there at number 7. At number 8 for the New York Giants, again, it's a weird situation, with me taking some offensive linemen and, making this a pretty unique spot. I'm looking at Arvell Reese because I was talking with you guys earlier and I'm like, I went after Mansour Delane. Personally, I don't fully value Flott in terms of my trust as the long-term option at corner 2. I think he's done really, really good recently, enough to maybe push off corner from number 8 overall. And so, you guys, this is why I love talking to y'all. I always say, be a dick, don't be a dick about it. You know your team better than I do. I try to be a fan of 32. You're a fan of 1. It helps me out. And I'd rather make a mistake once. You guys ended up calling that out, and I love you guys for it. I don't fully agree, but I also understand. And honestly, it was enough to make me be like, maybe we should try something different. And the guy I'm looking at right now is Arvell Reese. He's a very, very popular option, but also Caleb Downs. Now, you just can't go wrong with Caleb Downs. He's just one of the most high-quality pieces in the draft. You could talk about offensive line here, but I do think there's some pieces in the works that I feel very comfortable with. And if you had Fano here, I'd be a little bit more open for suggestion. If you move Dexter Lawrence, Peter Woods is the easy choice. But I'm going to go after Caleb Downs. I think best player available rarely ends up being the bad move. And I think Caleb Downs is fantastic. Will he drop from number 1? Maybe. But at the same time, I do think that the talent is so good that he's still going to end up being top 10, even if I have those issues. At number 9 for the Arizona Cardinals, you guys know me. I love Arvell Reese. This team definitely could wait till round 2 if they want to go after a linebacker. Talk about Anthony Hill, CJ Allen. Like, there are options. But I just personally don't believe in CC Maligoa being a right tackle. Like, there were issues last year that really scared the crap out of me. And I've watched some games versus some edge rushers with him this year and still has some really bad issues in space, especially letting up inside pressure and just losing the spot in the pocket that I don't think will end up being an issue at guard. Hence why I really like him at the guard role. So I'm going to go after the player I think is best, and that is Arvell Reese. I love a lot of players in this class, but Arvell Reese really has lived up to the hype. A lot of people try to give a ton of credit to certain players that I don't think really deserve it. But Arvell Reese is one of those that, in my opinion, does. He ends up starting pretty much for the first time this year. I mean, you look at the total amount of snaps, he's already eclipsed it. So I love the fact that you can also play him along the line. You're sending him to a defensive coach. It's just a great situation all around to put Arvell Reese into. At number 10 for the Houston Texans, honestly, probably should have tried to trade up for Arvell Reese. That would have been a really good option for him. But when you have Peter Woods on the board, you can't ignore it. Like, Peter Woods to me is one of the most solid players in the draft. He has not had the statistical production that maybe he's had last year. Even last year, that's actually quite underwhelming. But, in the same amount of snaps, you will see half the production. He's still just so damn solid overall. And I think the numbers do not reflect how he actually plays. And I think that there's just more of a whole system going on that might be the reason for the decreased production rather than the talent itself. And that's why you can't just look at the stats. Like, the stats tell you the end result, but not exactly how it got there. And so that's why you got to be able to watch with your peepers, understand what the hell is going on. And for the Texans, I do think that the value is perfect for this. I'm not going to disagree with being able to get a top tier player here at number 10. It might not be the biggest need for the team, but I do think when you add value into it, it makes sense. At number 11, we got the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is just a team that does not historically move from their spot. DJ Turner has been fantastic. So, I used to be like, you need corner like it's nobody's business. I still think getting somebody outside of DJ Turner is a good idea. Like, I hate to say it, like, Cam Taylor-Britt, not my kind of guy for the future. Offensive line absolutely could be in the question here. I mean, I'm talking about CC Mauigoa has tackle potential, but I do think, I mean, you drafted 2 Miami Hurricane offensive linemen in Jalen Rivers, as well as I'm forgetting Matt Lee, the center. Like, you guys like this program. It makes sense. And people believe CC should be going higher than where I'm taking him. So I feel pretty comfortable with the idea of trying him out there. And it can't get worse. Let's just be real. Like, Jalen Rivers has been ass, but CC Mauigoa, I think, is a top tier interior offensive lineman. The problem is at number 11, that's just very hard to justify. Versus if you want to go after a top tier corner that's like right next to, I mean, also has very similar athletic traits to DJ Turner, you can end up being like going from worst to first. You talk about the edges, absolutely. It is still a position of need. But if you look at what the ownership has shown to value, its RAS score and measurables. These guys in this class don't really have that. If Malachi Lawrence tests well, I think maybe in round 2, round 3, based on where he'll probably be projected to go, that's definitely somebody who will be much more on your radar. But these guys, I do worry about either the athletic traits like Keldrick Falk or stuff like arm length that TJ Parker will end up being a little bit more on the low one. So the question is, do you go guard at number 11? And I don't think the value's there. I'm going to go after Mansour Delane and create a lockdown corner duo with DJ Turner and Mansour Delane for the long haul. At number 12 for the Washington Commanders, I'm looking at TJ Parker here. I've also talked about Clev Lubin, who I ended up going earlier this week. He is, you guys can see him right there on my board at number 15 overall. I think this guy is a great edge rusher. And I think I'm 99% sure PFF has not gotten to his actual grade yet. Like, I'm just going to be completely honest. A lot of this is outdated. And so my board absolutely is. Granted, my day job is not football. It's kind of crazy. You guys ask me sometimes. So, I mean, if you guys are watching right now, I might as well tell you, I end up doing logistics for like silicious materials. So, you know, that's kind of crazy, but like roofing granules and stuff, it's a raw material for that. So, you know, it's pretty cool. I manage production for that. So that's definitely not like, I'm going to be honest, PFF should be a lot more in the know than I am. And I'm kind of surprised they aren't. But Clev is definitely somebody I would throw into the mix. But athletically, I do think TJ Parker is a very, very good edge rusher. I have him a little bit lower than maybe most, but I do think TJ Parker, with the upside he brings, the talent level he has, and like he brings that high level run defensibility as well. I think he's gotten better this year, even though the stats say otherwise. I'm going to go TJ Parker here at number 12 for the Commanders. I don't think that the option, I would not want, I'll say this, I don't want the Cowboys to have an opportunity to go TJ Parker. And I know edge rusher is right up there for me for the Cowboys. So, you know, it's just like limit the options, get a player who helps you out, and then also limit what the teams around you could do. But at 13 for the Dallas Cowboys, Jeremiah Love is here. The thing that I think the Cowboys are going to look at is how well Javonte Williams has been and the lack of investment they've had to put into it. It's like Rico Dowdle and then Javonte Williams, back-to-back years with low investment running backs having a ton of success in Dallas. Why are you going to spend a high-end pick on something that you've had success kind of doing the money ball situation? And you might say, well, Alex, I mean, Jeremiah Love's a superstar, and he definitely is. He's a really, really good back who has done a phenomenal job. I mean, versus USC, a huge game for him to have needed to take over. He ended up doing that with over 200 yards. So shout out to Jeremiah Love right there. But looking at how the Cowboys should be approaching their draft, they need to look at defensive interior, edge rusher, linebacker. If Arvell Reese were here, 100% you're going Arvell Reese. That's where my head's at. You need to go Arvell Reese if you can. But I think defensive interior is a must. I think that you should be open, honestly, to moving down in this situation. Wide receiver, I'm going to assume, because someone asked, and I don't really think this is going to happen, but I think George Pickens, if you somehow get him to stay, he's going to stay. You asked for it. I don't like doing that, but we're going to say George Pickens is staying. You paid him. So It's edge rusher, defensive interior, linebacker. Linebacker's not available at this point for me in terms of value. Look at the edge rushers. It would be Clev Lubin, who I think actually fits the more productive side of what the Cowboys have done. And he's super high IQ. And he's a good run defender. So I think he'd actually be a good pairing with Ezraku. I think that'd be actually a pretty good 1-2 punch. But the other guy I'm looking at right now is Christian Miller. Christian Miller has been one of the most high upside defensive interiors that I've studied. And this class has a good amount of good defensive interiors, but not many with the ceiling of Christian Miller. Like Amari Washington has a chance, but is far less efficient than Christian Miller in terms of the big plays. Like Amari will have like 1 or 2 a game. Like Christian Miller, it's like when he tries, and unfortunately, I would say the consistency is surprisingly a little bit more variable than I expect at this point of his career. But Christian ends up having the most dominant reps. Like Amari will run over a guy. Christian Miller will literally send them to a different postal code. And that's what I love about him. But there are so many good defensive interiors down the line that I honestly feel very comfortable with the idea of going after an edge rusher, because I know by pick 30, I'm not going to feel very comfortable with the late first value at edge. And you might say, like, Alex, this is so high for Clev. And, you're talking about PFF having him at 145. PFF has not updated this. I can guarantee you. He's 24% pass rush win rate, 9.2% run stop rate. But more importantly, he has been ridiculously dominant to the point where teams do not go his way. And when they do, he punishes them. I saw him walk Markel Bell back into a hole. Like, Markel tried to seal it off, wall it off. Clev, while looking around him, ended up pushing him into the hole. It was ridiculous. We're going to go Clev Lubin here. And again, you look at what the Cowboys have drafted, 265 plus. Then you have, of course, Ezraku. I think that was a BPA move. So I'm not going to say that's a 1-to-1. But who's been most productive? Ezraku, James Houston. The smaller guys are making it work. And I think it's time for a little bit of a change. We're going to go after a player who I really, really believe in. Technically, I have higher than TJ Parker and Clev Lubin. At 14 for the Minnesota Vikings, Jeremiah Love's an underrated move. I mean, this team needs to look at that as a legitimate, serious option. Unfortunately, I don't really think they exactly have what it takes. And there are ways to be able to get around said situation. But I'm looking at Kenyon Sadiq and Jeremiah Love here. And it's going to be my issue to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs if I don't make a move with somebody else. And a team I'm very intrigued to make a move with is the Carolina Panthers for Kenyon Sadiq. Because this team does not have a bona fide weapon at tight end. I'm sorry, I don't believe in Jatavian Sanders as a bona fide tight end one. Kenyon Sadiq reminds me a lot of Vernon Davis. Elite athlete, great after the catch, very underrated blocker, which is not like Vernon Davis. So you're talking about somebody who could be a superstar at tight end. And we've seen year after year, over the past few years, top tight ends are drafted in the first 40 picks on average. And a lot of them are drafted in the first 20. So I'm going to just put this out there right now. There's a chance that, if you talk about one that could be as high ceiling as Kenyon Sadiq, it might be worth throwing a bone out there. And for the Vikings, you have a lot of picks. I think you can end up recomping. I'm not really worried about your pick situation, but I think this is actually a really good opportunity. And pick number 120 was 15-17. So like 116 to me feels pretty apt. I do feel like this is a good opportunity for the Panthers to, instead of going pick 116 and just subtracting a selection, going up to pick 80 and actually getting something in return that could end up rebolstering the depth and allow you to get more players as well. I know it's going to piss off some Panthers fans. Feel free to disagree by all means. But I do think you can end up tossing in something like a pick 114, and then you could end up tossing in something like a pick 192. I think that that's a good option, maybe 227 as well, because Minnesota, I think you should throw that out like candy. And that will end up rebalancing your board. You add 2 picks and you go up 2 spots. And then again, you move back 34 spots. You move up 2. I think the value is there. So we're going to go after not Jeremiah Love. I'm tripping balls. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon, the clear tight end 1 of the class. Tight end 2 is Eli Raridan, who absolutely should be loved and will be loved in this series. But I will say there's not many that can compete with Kenyon Sadiq, especially in terms of the ceiling. I do think it's just definitely a weird year for him, but we know what he can be. And you have to buy in on these tight ends who really can change the game. And Kenny Sadiq's somebody who is just jaw dropping. So at number 15 for the Chiefs, I'm just going to run this one in. Jeremiah Love, running back, Notre Dame. Brashard Smith has a good chance of being able to at least make you pause before you end up going after someone like that. But Jeremiah Love, the value there at 15 just makes me feel very, very good about that. For the Vikings, I might do a double trade back. I mean, the question is, will you end up having Jordan Addison? Some people talked about him as a potential guy to not have on the team because of the off-field issues. If that's the case, Mekhi Lemon is perfect for you. And honestly, it's somebody who I think I want to go with in the next 2 picks as it is. Shout out to Denzel Boston, love him to death. But is there a team that could have a reason to love Mekhi Lemon and needs to get a top tier weapon? I'm looking at the Bills. The Bills could be a team that tries to make a move. The Browns, I think that they need as many picks as possible, so they need to pray to the Lord. I don't see the value. I don't see the value for a trade down. We're going to stick and pick with the Vikings, and I am going to end up still going after a player who I think is fantastic. He is tied as my number 2 corner in the draft. It's Avion Terrell. Like, you guys have shown through Isaiah Rodgers that this style of corner works with Brian Flores, and the flexibility, the tenacity, he's just worth it. And there's not many corners, because I have my concerns with Abney in terms of the overall acceleration athletic profile. There's not many corners that have both the coverage prowess and the athletic foundation that Avion Terrell has. And there's a big drop off after the top 3, in my opinion. I love Colton Hood. Maybe he's the next guy in line after Abney and Terrell. But Jermont McCoy should be returning to school. There's no reason to really assume he's going to come out. Like, guy's a true junior, and he's not going to have half of a year under his belt. That doesn't make very much sense. We're going to go Avion Terrell here regardless. I just don't think that anybody's really going to bite at this point. But we end up getting a player who I think I would have taken at 14 as it is, and ended up getting some extra draft capital and getting him there at 16. At 17 for the Los Angeles Rams, honestly, Mekhi Lemon's a good move here. With the quarterback situation, I could wait and just pick a guy who I think is going to be valuable. I usually go Lenoris at that spot. I've done it before, but I like to keep things fresh and change it up. And I think this team absolutely could use a young, dynamic super weapon. And Mekhi Lemon, who is literally playing where the Rams used to play when they first went to LA, is a perfect spot to go. Mekhi Lemon has been arguably a top 10 player in the entire class. He has just been so damn reliable. The only time where he's had a lack of production is when Leonard Moore, who in my opinion could be the best corner I have ever seen, ends up going up against him. Wow, that's crazy. And guess what? News flash. That's kind of what happens when you play the best of the best. But if you have any sort of doubt whether Mekhi Lemon is better, or is if you have any doubt that the corner is worse than Mekhi Lemon, this guy makes him pay every single time. And extremely reliable, great at all levels of the field. Definitely somebody you want to invest in early and often. At number 18 for the Chicago Bears, edge rusher definitely will be on the mind. Again, Keldrick Falk just feels like the easy push in at this point. Left tackle, I know there's some positivity with the kid who's ended up playing there. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but Ozzy Trapilo, you could talk about him. That's not the guy I'm talking about, of course, but I'm not really a huge fan of y'all's situation there. I do think CC needs to go eventually, but I mean, to be fair, the Bears could try CC out at tackle and end up putting him at guard. That guard spot is definitely potentially open, but edge rusher is super crucial for the Bears. Safety, you could talk about that. Boundary corner, I do think you guys are doing a pretty good job. It's good to see that you guys are bouncing back in that category. It's a weird spot. I do think that edge is a little bit uncomfortable. And to be fair, I think we can end up trading out of this spot if we want to. Looking at the wide receivers available, Denzel Boston is here, and I do think if there is a team that could value from him, they could try to jump the Browns. There's a chance. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, Chris Bell, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion are the ones who I would consider as worth it in this range. To be fair, offensive line with guard could absolutely be worth moving up for with CC Mauigoa. Are there any teams that could use a guard and a tackle? You talk about the Niners, but that's going to be on the left side. It's going to be weird because I think you need tackle upside for the Niners to get the value out of CC Mauigoa. Um, I mean, you could just make a small move with the Chargers because the Chargers need a good guard. And to be fair, I think this is actually the price is well worth a move up for a guard. Besides that, you are getting in pretty dangerous territory. The Seahawks, you can end up talking about them trying to make a move up for interior offensive line at this point because they need a right guard like it's nobody's business. But I'd prefer for the Seahawks to move up for someone like Sonny Styles, not really CC Mauigoa. And the price for that, for both those positions, is a little icky, but still there. I wouldn't count it out. But I'm actually going to make a move with the Chargers because I do think that enough teams are going to be at least interested in CC Mauigoa to where, you want to secure the deal. And pick 120 was a 2-spot move up for in the mid-teens. I think that, we're going to be perfectly fine with just a 1-to-1 swap here. Like maybe you toss in, pick 231. Congratulations. Happy Hanukkah. Like whatever the fuck you want to celebrate. But the Chargers are moving up and they're getting CC Mauigoa here. Again, you could talk about the Browns going back-to-back offensive line as well. I don't think that's the right move. Just going to put that out there, but certainly at least on the mind. Number 19, though, for the Cleveland Browns, I think wide receiver should also be the focus here. You went Spencer Fano for offensive line in the first. You look at Denzel Boston, Chris Bell, and Casey Concepcion here. Who can provide the most? I think Denzel Boston could, but I do have Chris Bell ranked higher, and he brings an AJ Brownness to him at 6'2", 220 pounds. Good after the catch. Good at the catch point as well. He was struggling to the start of the year, in my opinion, like if I'm not mistaken, with contested catch rate, but he went back right to where he was. Like just one of the most reliable weapons, both in the short and deep range, and even an intermediate. One of the best route runners too in terms of being able to change direction. I'm going to go after Chris Bell there for the Browns. At 20 for the Bears, again, it's just such a weird spot. Like, to me, Keldrick Falk could be the option. But you know what? I'm going to throw a curveball to myself. I'm going to go after Christian Miller, defensive interior out of Georgia. Really, really high ceiling there. I think he pairs well with Gervin Dexter. I know a nose tackle is a little bit more appealing, but at 310 pounds, I don't think he's necessarily a pushover. So I'm going to feel very comfortable with the idea of pairing him up with Gervin Dexter. And we also got some extra value in there. I mean, you should have taken the defensive interior from Georgia the last time you had an opportunity, but, you guys ended up not doing that. Still have Darnell Wright, so at least that's a plus. But, Christian Miller, the selection there. At 21 for the Buffalo Bills, I did think about a trade up with the Seahawks for our star linebacker in Sonny Styles, but did not happen. We're going to end up going after him here. The true linebacker 2 of the class currently, just the way he's played. My grade was I think linebacker 4 with Whit Weeks a little bit above him. Kyle Lewis, you guys know me. Kyle Lewis, I'm a super fan of Kyle Lewis. Love him to death. But I will say Kyle Lewis, build-wise, probably not going to be taking over a true Mike like Sonny Styles, who's had a fantastic year. At 22 for the San Francisco 49ers, I honestly think I kind of want to try to move back if I can, because Caden Proctor's my target to play him at guard and then have him be the long-term tackle. I know that I want to try something a little bit different for my fans out there, but I do think that, like with Denzel Boston on the board, I do think a team that's looking for a true number 2 receiver would not be a bad idea. The Steelers ended up trading for Rashid Shaheed if you missed that, but honestly, pairing up Denzel Boston, Rashid Shaheed, and DK Metcalf sounds like a pretty fucking awesome situation. I'm not against that. And I do think the Steelers should be looking at corner as well, which funnily enough, the team that I think is a little bit dangerous right now to take, like either Denzel Boston or one of the corners, is Seattle. I also think with Keith Abney's physicality, I could totally see the Lions being a team that's looking to go and address that. But also, I think Howie needs to start getting aggressive. The Texans could also be getting aggressive with their picks and end up trying to move up with double seconds. Not to this point, but I'm just saying in general. I know that Caserio likes to make moves. But I do think that Howie might actually make a move here because I'm looking at teams that would draft Caden Proctor. And technically, the Eagles could be one of them. But I look at Keith Abney. I mean, the thing is, Colton Hood will be there at 28. Is the value for Keith Abney that much over Colton Hood? I think the answer is no. But I love the idea of the Steelers making a move here because, I mean, you have teams in front of you that are going to be interested in players that you are. And it's such a short range trade. Again, it's going to be about pick 120. I'm just going to keep it at that. I'm not going to end up doing anything fancy here. We'll go and force this trade on through. And with the Steelers, you have so many picks. You already traded one for Rashid Shaheed. I feel very happy with that. So I'm looking at a boundary corner situation again with Tariq Woolen. We could see him staying in Seattle. We could see him going. Like, you need to end up locking it down. And, to be fair, the only two that are available are Colton Hood and Keith Abney. Abney is just so dynamic, not as an athlete, but in terms of his IQ, in terms of his physicality, he's the type of guy that you want. And he does bring that NFC or that AFC North to the table. And you can talk about Igbinosun as like a good second round, third round option, but I think I'm going to go after Keith Abney here. A lot of people really love him. I'm going to end up making that move and just taking the guy who I feel very, very comfortable with. At 23 for the Seattle Seahawks. Again, Keith Abney probably wouldn't have been my choice, but I was thinking it potentially as a dark horse for the Lions, especially with the way that, unfortunately, Terrion Arnold has not really worked out. But interior offensive line, wide receiver 2, definitely going to be on the board, but Vega Ione is kind of a baller pick here. Like, Vega is a left guard, but we'd be moving him to right. In my opinion, that's not very hard to do. It's more so the tackles in terms of, you're having to cover half of a field or like half of your body or half of your responsibility does not have someone next to you. So flipping it completely is a bit of a different game than necessarily being in the phone booth and then having a slightly different mechanics in that way. But Vega's been an absolute monster. I don't know if I fully trust him to work in the zone system. He is a little bit more of a gap player to me, even though he technically graded higher in zone. I just think his athleticism doesn't really match like Gray Zabel. For that, I'll end up passing on guard for now. I know that you guys need it. Do not worry. I'm not that stupid. I have my moments, but wide receiver 2, in my opinion, needs to be addressed. And there are two guys here, Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. To me, it makes too much sense to go after someone who could be a true X and end up allowing JSN to have a little bit less attention on him. Denzel Boston's been fantastic right down the road, 6'4", 210, and then again has been so damn reliable there for the Washington Huskies. At 24, we have the Detroit Lions, and honestly, pretty good selection right now. I feel like you could end up trying to still go after someone like Colton Hood. Center, unfortunately, is just not a good option. Connor Liu tore his ACL. He will not be considered in this draft. Round 2, round 3, we can end up talking about with Logan Jones, Parker Brailsford. I know that there's a new resurgence. I'm trying to remember which center is getting boosted up, but Logan Jones, especially after his Penn State game, ends up being a name in mind. But if I'm being honest, we could end up just kicking one of the guards to center at this point, going Vega Ione, like really high floor guard who brings a large amount of physicality that I know the Lions will love. He's coming from a very run heavy system, so it's going to be great for Montgomery and Gibbs. That is kind of the focal point, and his pass blocking grade has gone through the roof. You know what? Let's go after it. Vega Ione, guard out of Penn State, going to the Detroit Lions. Again, figure out the center situation with whoever can actually snap the ball, but Vega has just been such a reliable option that I think that the value is just too good to pass on in terms of solidifying another piece on that offensive line that just is rock solid. At 25 for the Niners, I ended up telegraphing my move a long time ago. I'm going Caden Proctor, weapon out of Alabama, former tight end, running back, wildcat quarterback, wide receiver, whatever the hell you want to call him. But most importantly, offensive tackle. And the thing is, I want him to play guard early, start him over Connor Colby, and have him cross-trained to be the tackle of the future. At 26 for the Denver Broncos, I really like going after wide receiver whenever there's a good one available. KC could be that, but I will say I kind of want to change some things up. Like, I just don't really feel very comfortable doing the same thing over and over and over again. Certain teams I feel comfortable with it because like I just really like how it turns out. But for the Broncos specifically, tight end is like we got to see what Raritan ends up continuing to do. If they make a playoff push and Raritan's like going off, like he already was a top 50 player for me. Definitely somebody who still could end up being in that realm. LT Overton could provide some good defensive line help. R. Mason Thomas could be a nice true edge for you guys and play a very similar role to Nick Bonito, who's had a ton of success for you guys. Fantastic find. But I mean, honestly, Keldrick Falk's an intriguing, like defensive interior. You could try to take a swing there. But linebacker, I honestly want to trade. This is another spot. I just feel very uncomfortable with the value here for the Broncos to where I'd want to move back. With Colton Hood available, I think this is a really good opportunity for the Eagles to jump the Rams because the Rams, in my opinion, could be trying to get Colton Hood and then end up trading back into the late first. Talk about the Buccaneers right here. And then end up trying to go and draft their quarterback and just solve their problems with 3 first-round picks. To me, that actually is a pretty smart idea. I ain't going to lie. I'm not going to have it happen because I'm going to have the Eagles trade up here. I think that it might be out of spite that you could end up saying screw you to Philly. I kind of like that idea. Might end up calling up Steichen and be like, yo, Howie's on the phone, bro. You want to do some business? You want to get at him? And be like, fuck him. Honestly, I like that idea anyways. It's like for the Colts, like I don't really love the value that's going to be there at 32. I never have really liked it. So it's going to be a really fun opportunity here. And I think getting a late 3rd round pick is pretty requisite. You could end up trying to do like 64 and get like 90 in the equation and then not lose the overall picks. But I personally think you can end up, tossing in a pick if you do please. Damn, neither of them have like a 200 spot. That would have been kind of fun. Be like, all right, we'll end up doing 171, 65 just to make it cute. Oh, and actually, guys, I didn't even have to force it. That's sick. Sick. All right, there we go. We moved up a little bit. But the Colts ended up moving up here. And again, I'm having Jermod McCoy return in this. So people are going to lose their minds. But he's a true junior. He's not even playing. Like, guys, he's probably going to be a 1st-round pick next year. Pump the brakes. We're going to go Colton Hood and end up taking him right in front of both the Rams and the Eagles. So I ended up, you guys know me. I'm ruthless to every team that's after the team that I am playing or that I'm like taking a pick for. But for the Rams at 27, I feel very comfortable looking at quarterback here. Lenore Sellers going to be the option. People are going to complain about the Steelers not going after a quarterback, but I hate to say it. Lenoris is not going to work on the Steelers. He needs to be in a spot that actually trains him. And I think he'll go back to school. But there's a chance that if the Rams are saying, hey, with our 2nd pick, we'll take you regardless. It makes sense. Like Sam Levitt, like a lot of these quarterbacks who work for the Rams, Mateer, Sellers, etc. The Steelers, I think that if you're spending your 1st-round pick, go it on somebody that you're not going to be rolling the dice on. I know the draft's in Pittsburgh, yada, yada, but a lot of very good quarterbacks that, in my opinion, will be perfectly fine and available for you guys in the 2nd round. For the Rams, I don't feel very comfortable at pick number 59 for that being the case. I don't think it's going to happen. And when you have 5 years, so you need a year to develop Lenore Sellers, I think you can end up taking it with your 1st pick and being fine. At 28, we have the Eagles and, took all the options I normally go for Philly. Really happy about that, as you guys can see. But I do think the next option is offensive tackle, getting a long-term replacement for Lane Johnson. And that's Trevor Gooseby. Trevor played right tackle some bit last year. He's actually had some struggles this year, but in my opinion, has done so much better in terms of his footwork. So he's getting there, and he's 6'7". He has incredible tricep strength. You'll see when his arms are locked out, he has that the 1-inch punch. Like, you remember when you did that shit with your friends? Like the 1-inch punch for him, so strong. I don't understand why, but his actual engagement, when he ends up popping the whatever defender he's playing, not consistently strong, but he has the strength. So you see that foundation there. His first kick and his kick slide is gorgeous now. It used to be a bit of an issue, but definitely somebody that I think this team needs to look at right tackle for the future, potential another edge rusher. And then you look at that boundary corner too. I've depleted the boundary corner twos at this point. We're going to go after Trevor Gooseby, tackle out of Texas, who is, again, raised up a notable amount for me. I was a big disbeliever in him coming into the year, and he's taken huge strides. At number 29 for the New England Patriots, apparently some dudes are doing drag races on the freeway and not in the way that's a little bit scary. Well, I guess it is kind of scary because you almost die. But regardless, at number 29, we have the New England Patriots. And I think this is just the prime opportunity to go and bolster your edge core. David Bailey's not super sexy. Statistically, he is. But like, he is not like super fluid, super fast, super like technical. Like, there's not something to his game that is overwhelming, but it just is a great package. And to me, he is a solid edge 3-2. At the end of the first, that is kind of what you're looking at. And I don't think Caleb on Chason will be staying for the long haul, but even if he does, I think David Bailey also ends up fitting in the same mold. Super duper smart. A lot of people have him way higher than I do. I don't think Keldrick Falk fits the build. LT Overton doesn't fit the physical build. So I'm going to go after a player who does, and that's going to be David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. At number 30 for the Cowboys, Clev Lubin was the first selection there. You do not have the option to go after David Bailey. So if you guys are going to get pissed, at least now, there's not like you could have gotten David Bailey, bro. Thank God. I would have never heard the end of that one. But I promise you, that's not why I went David Bailey there. But, it ended up luckily falling that way. I think for the Cowboys, you need to look at potentially going after Caden McDonald here. Without a third-round pick, I do think this is a good opportunity as well to move back. I don't know too many teams are going to look at defensive interior. Even if they do, there's a lot of guys you can talk about. If you want to go after ceiling, Amari Washington. You want to go after floor and also some good ceiling, Caden McDonald. If you want to roll the dice on injuries, Caleb Banks. Like, you just have options everywhere. You want to just go after pure floor, Tim Keenan. Like, I just love the fact that it's just very, very reliable. Casey Concepcion, another really good option. But the question is, who would a team try to trade up for here? And looking at how the end of the draft or end of the first round is looking, is there a team that should be looking at a quarterback? And you can talk about the Browns right now. I don't think that's out of the question for them. Like, the Browns could end up going after John Mateer at this point, but I do think that you need to look at someone who's a little bit more of a distributor. That to me just feels like someone you should take on day two. Like, unless you get the top three guys, you probably shouldn't be pushing too hard. Like, just going to put that out there. So the quarterback situation, I don't think warrants it. Wide receiver, I know that there's going to be a large amount that go in the early part of the second round. And the Dolphins did just end up getting a boatload of draft capital to where I feel like we could try to make a move here with them. The Saints as well, but we ended up doing wide receiver for them, so I like that. But the Saints actually would be a really good destination because you guys run a 3-4, but also have Mickey Loomis. You could end up kind of working out a great situation for either Keldrick Falk, but I think a little bit more of LT Overton. Not a bad option there. Or even the Titans. The Titans have multiple second-round picks here as well, which would be very intriguing for the Cowboys to be able to, manipulate that board. But I would kind of want more of a third-round pick out of that equation, especially given that, like, how that's ended up being. So, honestly, I'm really unhappy with the fact that I'm really unhappy with the way this is shaking out. Shoot. Honestly, the Dolphins make the most sense. I know for the Jets, I'd be going KC Concepcion. Like, you don't want to lose two of the top players in your own division at this point. Love Jeremy Bernard, CJ Daniels, Antonio Williams. I just think that it's a pretty clear next best guy in Concepcion that I know that the Jets or the Broncos are going to take. So that way, you know what? I think this is a good opportunity. So the Cowboys are ending up trading to pick number 34. Dolphins end up dropping 4 spots. To me, that's about pick number 120. So I'm going to give 102 and then end up like giving back. Oh, God, these picks fucking suck. Ew. Like, these picks suck. I actually hate this for them. You know what? We're going to do 105. And again, this is a 4-spot move up plus 5th-year tax. I feel actually pretty comfortable with that. It'll just be pick 105. Um, I do want to give a pick back to him, but I do feel like I think the Cowboys need it. I think the Dolphins need it. We're going to just go with pick number 105 and end up making that move up. The Cowboys end up getting an early fourth. The Dolphins end up moving up, and they select their star receiver for the future. They got Dante Moore. They're going to end up getting Casey Concepcion, wide receiver at Texas A&M. With Tyreek Hill going, you just go after someone who could be a dominant receiver for you. Call it a day. At number 31 for the Buccaneers, a lot of the options that I'd like ended up being kind of eviscerated, but you still have good edge rushing talent available. And this is a guy who I've started to push into my first round. And I think as more people watch him, I think they're going to believe it as well. It's R. Mason Thomas. Like, there's going to be teams that should be looking for him in this range, but R. Mason Thomas just makes a ton of sense. You could talk about him even at number 32 as well. Like, R. Mason Thomas is a perfect replacement for Hassan Reddick. He has incredible speed, incredible tenacity, sub 32-inch arms, but, that's the only reason Cassius Howell is sub 31. R. Mason, there have been players who've had success with that size. Cassius Howell, much fewer. At number 32 and ending off the first round, we do have the Denver Broncos here. I pushed them off long enough, and I think it's time to pay the Pied Piper. We're just going to go after a high-quality linebacker here. Some people think it should be C.J. Allen. Some people think it should be Anthony Hill. I'm going to trust Vance at this point and end up having him mold the player who I think has the best frame and just the best foundation. And based on the common opinion, that's going to be Anthony Hill Jr. That's going to be the first round and the first day and the first video. Stay tuned tomorrow for rounds 2 and 3. Love you. See you later. Peace.